On one of the busiest roads in Port Stephens, police claim to have found one of the biggest drug operations the area's ever seen.
A well-organised and significant hydroponic cultivation setup. A total of 452 cannabis plants were allegedly located at that premises, as well as a significant quantity of leaf and equipment involved in cannabis cultivation.
Officers swooped on the Nelson Bay Road home yesterday, dismantling the operation and making an arrest.
This will have a significant impact on drug supply locally, as well as I expect more across the state as well.
Today, police continued to collect evidence. They now believe cannabis seized from the property is valued at more than $5 million. Officers will also allege the operation was illegally accessing power.
The grid had been accessed and electricity was being taken straight through to the growing area.
A 36-year-old salt ash man appeared before Maitland Court this morning on a string of charges including cultivation and supply of a prohibited drug. He'll remain behind bars until his next court appearance at Raymond Terrace on Monday. Christy Reading, NBN News. It might be Sydney's loss, but it's certainly Port Stephens' gain. Cronulla's Fisheries Research Centre is in the process of closing down, part of the state government's plan to take public servant jobs out of the city and into regional areas.
Staff have been relocated to Port Stephens, so the Port Stephens Fisheries Institute will take on probably another 23 staff.
The move is going ahead despite a parliamentary inquiry recommending the decision be reversed because an economic appraisal hasn't been undertaken. Home to fisheries and agriculture, science and research, the Port Stephens Institute has just been upgraded to make way for the extra numbers.
The government has just spent just on $1 million upgrading the facilities, making it probably the best fisheries research station in Australia.
And that's sure to be a win for the region.
That means 23 families coming into Port Stephens to continue research into wild fish farming in particular.
Christy Reading, NBN News.
A bonny baby boy, little Jack McCulley is the apple of his father's eye.
Oh, I'm over the moon, just like most dads, I guess. Just loving every second.
Jack was 2 weeks overdue, but his late arrival on January 2nd means his dad Al will receive 2 weeks paid paternity leave at the minimum wage, worth just over $1,200 in total.
I actually had a word to him about it, told him to stay put, and he's obviously a pretty well-behaved boy because he listened to his old man.
It'll mean extra bonding time for the new family of 3 from Lambton.
Just extra help around the house and help me with Jack, get my confidence up. So, yeah, it'd be good.
Dan Danaher is the proud new dad of beautiful baby Sibylla. He's also welcomed the additional paternity leave after just scraping in. She was born on New Year's Day.
Yeah, it's invaluable just being able to help out. It puts me in the good books at home, but also just being able to see the little one grow and do things that I wouldn't have been able to see otherwise.
Sibylla was one of 8 babies born at the Newcastle Private Hospital on the 1st of January, with 30 births in the last 4 days. Her family is from Charlestown, part of the Lake Macquarie local government area, which according to the Bureau of Statistics is the baby capital of the region, topping the list with 2,416 births. Newcastle recorded 2,129 babies born in 2011 and 1,067 in Maitland.
An extended squad has been named for the clash and starting spots are up for grabs. But Gary Van Egmond will wait a little longer to decide on what he hopes is a winning combination, with Joe Wheelhouse still not confident he's ready to play.
Yeah, I don't think I've really done enough of grade 1 tearing your medial. It's only just been a month and it'd be pretty silly for me to jump in after only training with the team for 48 hours.
At best, he'll come off the bench. Dominic Ritter has been ruled out, while Scott Neville trained today despite a hamstring strain. The team's final makeup will depend on fitness and form.
The last thing you want is long-term injuries, and you can get that from fatigue. And obviously from the other point of view, you still need to ensure that people are getting selected on merit.
Heading into round 15, Van Egmond is still no closer to a solution to his side's leaky defence.
Yeah, I'm going to ask if the strikers of Adelaide won't score. How's that? Maybe that might do the trick.
With only 4 points from their last 8 games, the Jets have a fight on their hands on the table.
We have to take the ascendancy first, and we haven't done that probably enough in games.
Some good news for Jets fans, with Nathan Tinkler yesterday settling his rental debt for Hunter Stadium with the New South Wales State Government. Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News. Remember the name, Scandal Man. He cruised to victory in last weekend's intercity pace heat, almost breaking the track record. Touted as harness racing's next big thing, he'll have at least one clear challenger. Local Mayor Chisnell has a slight advantage.
Yeah, we're drawing 6. It's going to be a hard, drawing 6, but the favourite is drawing barrier 10.
With Scandal Man forced to come from behind, Chisnell will likely need to hang on, something she's more than capable of.
And she's won her last 5 in a row, and her last 2 wins have been real tough. Like, she's done it tough both ends, and she keeps fighting the line. So, it depends on how the races run. She'll be there at the finish, hopefully.
After a slow start to her Australian career, the 5-year-old has struck a rich vein of form.
She had 30 starts in New Zealand for only 2 wins, and the bloke who ran me said, keep an eye, she'll do a good job here. And when we watched her, she ran last, and I thought, that's, it's a bit hard to get owners to buy a horse when they run last.
Those owners took a punt, and it seems to be paying off. If she wins, Chisnell could even share in the spoils.
The main bloke that owns Chisnell owns Head and Greta Pub, so if she won the final, she'd probably come to Head and Greta Pub with us, I'd say.
Few skinners for her or what?
I'd say there'd be something like that.
Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News. With some sweltering summer days ahead, the Hunters lifeguards are hard at work. Just after 10 this morning, a big crowd was building at Nobby's Beach. The punters gearing up for what was looking like a great day.
Well, it's been a hot start to the summer and a really good one on the surf-wise.
That means more families, more tourists, and more people swimming in rips. While prevention is the cure, our boys in blue are still expecting plenty of action.
Especially at Newcastle Beach, where the boys have got a bit of a bad edge there, and around at the Merriweather Bar Beach stretch, there's been some activity there.
Nobby's lifeguard Warren Smith is aware people will take risks and swim outside the flags.
As long as people act with common sense and just do things that are sort of within their boundaries.
With no real swell to speak of, the notoriously dangerous bogey hole was a haven for bathers. It was a similar scene at Bar Beach and further down the coast at Redhead.
It's quite busy today and it will get busier with the next week. We're predicting 30 pluses.
With eyes in the sky and on the water, bathers were making the most of the conditions. Even the anniversary of a shark attack wasn't keeping them at bay.
If you do go out in the water, it's one of those things, it could happen. However, you've got more chance of actually getting into trouble in the car park than actually a shark in the ocean.
Still, with plenty of summer days to go, the message seems to be getting through.
The general public's been really well behaved and responding well to our needs, so it's been a fantastic season.
So you got them all swimming between the flags, or?
Yes, up there between the flags.
Not worried about getting caught in a rip or anything like
that? No, not we're only close in here.
Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News.
Surf Tag isn't your normal surf comp. 2 teams of 5 compete in hour-long heats, with each surfer catching 3 waves before tagging his teammate. Merriweather fielded 2 teams in today's Northern New South Wales final. Jake Sylvester gave Merriweather Black a great start. Merriweather Blue featured more local identities, including Ryan Callanan. Former WQS surfer Travis Lynch turned back the clock, while Port Macquarie featured its own all-star cast, including World Junior champion Matt Banting. In the end, free surfer Craig Anderson helped Merriweather Blue to an easy win and a ticket to the national final. The battle for the other 2 places came down to a mad rush involving Port's Mitch Vanderveer and Merriweather Black's Reece Smith. Even getting across the line earns you valuable points, leading to a dramatic sprint finish. Following a nervous wait, the home side scraped into today's decider and the national final.
We're all pretty pumped. I think we're going to get a bus and head up there all together, so it should be a good trip away.
For Anderson, this event represents a rare chance to compete.
That was really fun. I do these contests every year and I really enjoy it. Just surfing in a team, it's always fun and it makes it competitive, kinda. I'm not usually very competitive.
The sweet, sweet feeling of buying your first home.
Really super excited about it.
After 4 years of relentless house hunting, Sarah and Robert Dungeon finally sealed the deal and bought this terrace in Cooks Hill. And according to the latest property forecast by research firm BIS Shrapnel, their timing was perfect.
It shows that Newcastle property market in the next 3 years will go up to the equivalent of Sydney, which is 17%.
The report predicts economic growth in the city over the next few years will see median price growth accelerate. Experts say the positive market outlook is due to several factors, including employment growth, a surge in retirees moving to Newcastle, and dwindling vacancy rates.
That was the main thing for me, was to get into properties in Newcastle pretty quickly before the market starts to shift.
Buy a house in Newcastle now for the median price of $385,000, and by June 2015 it's predicted to be worth around $450,000. So if you're thinking of buying, the message is get in while it's hot.
I think it's an excellent time to buy. It's probably been very flat for the last, say, 4 years.
And if you already own, well, you might want to hang on just a little longer.
It's probably a good time to hang on if you don't really have to sell.
Stephanie James, NBN News.
The Reds had the chance to go top, and early on they looked dangerous, but the Jets' defence soon settled. Both teams were feeling the heat as drinks were called. The home side benefited most from the break. Approaching half-time, Newcastle had the momentum. Griffiths looked most likely to score after the break. Adam Taggart replaced Heskey and almost had his first Jets goal. But 0-0 was how it stayed as Newcastle recorded its first clean sheet this season.
It wasn't a monkey, mate. It was like a gorilla. Yeah. You know, it was hanging over us, and it is a good feeling.
Both coaches praised the young Jets backline.
I think Taylor Regan did a great job. He's for a skinny kitty, he did a great job on Bruce.
But the day's biggest cheer was reserved for Michael Bridges. His efforts didn't go unnoticed.
He's done enough for my books to see him get another Guernsey as well, and maybe more time. And, he hasn't played for a long time, but, he did some really good things out there.
With $50,000 up for grabs, the locals were hoping the Rodney Pike-trained Chisnell could spring an upset. In the ring, Scandal Man was odds on, but not everyone was backing the Group 1 winner.
Well, I've gone for number 3, 11 and 5, because when I watched number 5 go around like in the circle thing, he just kept looking at me.
With the best vantage points occupied, the 50th Intercity Pace final was off and running. Chisnell never got going, but the favourite was all class.
It's very hard to come from the second row around Maitland, and especially when the other favourites draw the front, and he did it, and he was too good.
It's hoped the success of the 50th Intercity Pace will bring more meetings to Maitland.
Hopefully that we can demonstrate now to Harness New South Wales that we are capable of the big events, we are capable of having a big crowd turnout,
Picture this: Newcastle's decaying post office transformed into an art gallery, and the Lord Mayor wants the $21 million revamp of the current gallery scrapped to pay for it.
An enormous amount of money has been wasted by the art gallery on those projects over the years. I don't intend to have any more wasted.
Space-wise and money-wise, it just doesn't stack up.
Mr McCloy argues the project would save council millions of dollars. Not everyone agrees.
I don't think the Lord Mayor's done the costings.
The redevelopment of the Newcastle Art Gallery is set to cost $21.6 million. The restoration bill for the post office has been estimated at $15 million. But Mrs Tate says the costs won't end there.
The cost of maintaining that building, even if it is done up, is huge. Plus you've got to have extra staff up there.
Kathy Tate says you haven't done your homework.
Oh, I do this for a living, Kathy.
The Lord Mayor estimates the entire project would cost $15 million at the most. Meanwhile, council is still waiting for the state government to come up with the remaining $7 million for the art gallery's redevelopment. Money Mr McCloy now wants redirected to his post office idea. But it seems any concrete plans for the old landmark will have to wait. The building is currently the subject of an Indigenous land claim. The state government says it's powerless to do anything until there's a decision on that next year.
Maybe some negotiations can be had to shorten that decision-making process.
Stephanie Jeans, NBN News.
Extra, extra, read all about it. An anniversary edition of the Mercury hot off the press. The tribute to 170 years of news was sold out by lunchtime.
It was probably a bigger job working out what wasn't going to go in it rather than what was going into it when you try to put 170 years of the Maitland Mercury into 52 pages.
The Mercury's new office has been a fresh start in its 170th year. For Deputy Editor Tony Edmonds, his job is a labour of love. He's racked up 37 years.
To be here on such an historic day is a wonderful feeling.
The changing face of how news is delivered, one of the biggest challenges and triumphs for the paper.
You're here to tell a story, and whatever form that comes in is what people will hopefully, it'll touch people's hearts and hopefully stay with them for a very long time.
Now the younger ones, they're coming in, they know it all, you know, from Facebook to the online stuff. It's just a modern technology, and I think it's going to be a great future for us.
Despite a special lunch and some sweet treats, in many ways it was business as usual, as the deadline for tomorrow's headline looms. Christy Reading, NBN News. Not many people know their way around a train as well as 75-year-old Terry Gardner. He began doing general maintenance and worked his way up over 60 years, doing almost every job along the way.
Then a cleaner, acting fireman, acting driver and driver, and a special class driver.
He's famously punctual and still enjoys the work, and he's stuck at it, an exception to the rule in this day and age.
Sometimes you feel like giving it away, but no, I just kept going, and as they say, never give in. Keep going.
The guards, they'll tell me that they don't have to look at their watch. He's always on time at the platform. He's fit and healthy, he enjoys his job, and we enjoy working with him.
Terry's been a driver for 38 years, seeing much change from steam to diesel to electric, and when it comes to his career highlights, it seems what happens on the rails stays on the rails.
Some can't be printed, what's talked about. No. You always keep things to yourself.
More than 50 colleagues gathered today to help celebrate his 60 years. Some he hadn't seen for 3 decades. Terry plans to retire sometime this year to spend more time with his family. For now, though, he's still as conscientious as ever.
I'll just have a few drinks, that's all. Not too many. Got to work again tomorrow.
In Australia, drowning is one of the leading causes of death in children under 4. On Boxing Day, a 17-month-old girl was pulled unconscious from a backyard pool on the Gold Coast. Despite frantic efforts to save her, she died in hospital. Just 2 days prior, a girl aged 3 was saved by a lifeguard at SeaWorld Resort, while the same day a boy was revived after he got into trouble in the family pool. In Sydney, a toddler recently drowned after falling into a swimming pool at her home, while in Coffs Harbour, a 6-year-old boy died while snorkelling off Emerald Beach.
Our Learn to Swim programs need to be frequented further by our community, and we need to encourage our parents and our school systems to get these children into Learn to Swim programs as soon as possible.
In Newcastle, parents seem to be wasting no time getting their children into swimming early. Balance Mayfield specialises in familiarising children as young as 6 months with the water.
If we get them from babies on, they're confident and they get used to the water, and we teach them if they fall in, turn around and grab the wall, which is very important.
The songs help them understand what's going to happen next, while also creating a little fun. At 18 months old, Ewan Jones has begun what his parents hope is a lifelong love of the water.
For us, it's an essential part of life, is both in terms of having fun and being safe in the pool.
But parents are also being warned that swimming lessons don't mean your child is out of danger, something the Kremen family knows all too well. 2-year-old Shani took off her floaties when her parents were distracted by an argument between 2 other children. Arms flailing and her face blue, her mum pulled her from the pool just in time.
The most horrific thing I've ever seen in my life. You've just got to be more aware and not take your eyes off them for 1 minute. 1 minute could be just too long.
50% of drownings in children under 5 occur in home swimming pools. To help ensure backyard pools pose little threat to young lives, the Royal Lifesaving Society has created a safety app. It's free to download and provides an interactive checklist, allowing pool owners to conduct a self-assessment of their surroundings. While parents are being warned that at public pools, lifeguards often have their work cut out for them and are not to be used as babysitters.
It's not about just going in and dropping your kid at the pool and sitting down with a newspaper and a cup of coffee and again wondering where your child is in 10 minutes' time. It's very difficult on busy days especially for those lifeguards to be able to watch every child in the facility.
But experts say if you pay attention to the warnings, it should make for a lot of safe fun in the sun. Emma Murphy, NBN News.
A host of the Jets regulars were given today off after 3 games in 8 days. Those who did train were definitely feeling the heat. But after playing almost 30 minutes in Newcastle's draw with Adelaide, Michael Bridges was keen to prove he's still got plenty of fuel left in the tank.
Listen, I'm 34, but I'm a passionate man. I'm a winner at heart, and I want to win, and I'll run my socks off for this club, you know. And you get an opportunity like that, you've got to try and take it.
Bridges today admitted he recently feared he'd played his last A-League game for the Jets, making his ovation from the Newcastle crowd even more special.
The reception that I was given, you know, it gave us shivers, and I was very humbled by it.
If Emile Heskey is ruled out this week, his fellow Englishman is unlikely to make a straight swap. But Bridges is still hoping for the chance to build on his combination with Adam Taggart.
I wish I'd have scored a goal and ran around like a lunatic, you know, or set up Adam Taggart for his chance. That was the only rusty side of my game, the final pass, and obviously that comes with more game time.
Meanwhile, the Jets women's side has given itself a great chance of avoiding the W-League wooden spoon after a fighting 2-2 draw with the Glory in Perth. Newcastle led 1-0 early thanks to Emily Van Egmond, but it was Jasmine Courtney's late strike that earned the visitors a valuable point. The Jets host Melbourne this weekend in the final round. Off the bike for more than 10 months, Chad Reed's rivals weren't doing him any favours at the start of his heat in Anaheim. By the end, he was just squeezed out of the top 6. The former world champion made a host of modifications throughout the night, hoping for more in the main event. It paid off as Reed made a better start and settled comfortably into 5th early on. As he calmly made his way through the 20-lap race, some of his main rivals struggled. In the end, Reed would finish 4th as Davey Millsaps grabbed the series lead after round 1. Round 2 takes place in Phoenix next weekend.
Across the Hunter, there was no let-up from the heat. 42 degrees at Cessnock, and really, where else would you be?
The best place to be, either here or at home in the air conditioners.
Even these panting poochers at the RSPCA shelter needed a quick dip to cool off. But spare a thought for those who simply couldn't escape the sweltering conditions.
Getting warmer as we speak right now.
While most residents were busy trying to cool off, 90 fire crews across the region were on standby for the worst.
It's the worst possible conditions, and any fires today are certainly will be very hard to contain or control.
Residents at Abernethy ensured they were ready.
I've gone all over the roof, got rid of all the roofs and everything out of there.
Memories of the horror 2002 bushfire, which claimed one life here, still vivid. Peter Fennell almost lost his house.
I was watching from across the road, so it was pretty scary.
Today, local RFS crews were supported by colleagues from further north.
We had a bit of trouble in the North Coast earlier last year, and these guys come up to help us, so we're down here to help them.
Tonight, with no major fires burning in the region, there is some relief. While a cool change is expected early tomorrow morning, the RFS is warning Hunter residents the threat isn't over.
Everything is so dry, so really people need to be aware, not just today, but really up until we get substantial rain.
Stephanie Jeans, NBN News.
Yeah, been in twice. It's very refreshing on a day like this.
Mate, I haven't felt this hot for probably 2 years easy. Yeah, usually walk around bare feet, can't do it. Just had to go and get thongs on. It's probably the full 40, yeah, easy.
As the sun came out to scorch the Hunter, those less able to cope with the heat hit the safe confines of the air-conditioned cool.
Both ends of the age spectrum are particularly vulnerable, infants and little children,
and then particularly the elderly.
As the mercury nudged 40 by mid-afternoon, staff at aged care facilities kept a close watch on residents.
Probably be more hyper-vigilant. The elderly do not like to drink. Trying to make it interesting by giving them water ice blocks.
We've got the activities being brought down into the house today to save them going out in the heat.
Even a few social engagements had to be put on ice.
I could go up to the resort centre this afternoon. They have shoot and shuffle, which I enjoy very much, but I wouldn't be going out in this heat. It's not good for you.
Health authorities urge people to check on those more susceptible to heat stroke.
Heat stroke is certainly not a trivial condition, and every year we have a number of preventable deaths, particularly amongst vulnerable people due to heat stroke.
The Hunters paramedics were prepared for the worst.
They are fully equipped with usual medical equipment, but they have extra supplies of fluids and water on board.
But thankfully that scenario didn't happen. Kath Landers, NBN News.
Following a successful return last year, the National Ironman Series is back in Newcastle this weekend, with a host of big-name stars in tow, and it will showcase the city to the world.
The broadcast goes to the UK, the Southeast Asia, South America and the Americas as well, so it's a great exposure for the city.
Despite poor surf conditions, close to 4,000 people crowded Newcastle Beach for the 2012 event. It might be back, but it was a near thing, with Wollongong trying to steal the round away.
The big draw card for us was that they've dealt with us on a few occasions now, and they find the city and in particular the council and the surf clubs in the area very, very easy to work with.
The Australian Surf Rowers League will return to Stockton in early February, while the Australian Bull Riding Championships will drop into Bar Beach for the second year running. And arguably our premier international event will cap a big couple of months off.
We've improved the whole beachfront down there at Merewether through John Parade and the works that have been done along the foreshore area.
Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News.
The Jets started early to try and beat the heat, but even before 9 o'clock there was nowhere to hide. With club captain Jobe Wheelhouse still recovering from a knee injury and Emil Heskey nursing a quad strain, this was the last thing Newcastle needed. Ruben Zadkovic went down clutching his knee before shuffling to the sheds for treatment. Keeper Mark Birighitti can empathise, having only recently recovered from a fractured cheekbone.
I'm fully confident now. If I get hit, I get hit. It's fully recovered, and as I said, that's in the past, and now we just look forward to the future.
Birighitti couldn't be happier the Jets scored their first clean sheet this season against his former club. He says a lot of the credit should go to the young defensive pairing of Taylor Regan and Connor Chapman.
It was good playing with that back four. I think we have to keep that and work on it. Hopefully he doesn't change too much.
The more games that I'm getting, the more confident I'm getting, and I think you may be able to see that in my game, and especially with Taylor Regan there next to me in the last game, I felt a lot more comfortable with him, and I thought we worked well together.
Dropped just a few rounds ago, Chapman believes he's come back stronger after producing a handful of mistakes in earlier games.
I thought I was doing all right, but I wasn't up to the standard that I should have been. I wasn't playing the game that I should have been, and it just gave me more drive to get back into the team.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. The Hobie Wildcat is known for its speed and mobility. The father and son team of Brett and Lockie White exhibited plenty of both to beat more than 60 crews at the Nationals in Melbourne, although there were a few scary moments. Brett won numerous Australian titles in the 80s, but wasn't expecting to enjoy the same success so early with his 14-year-old son.
Expectations weren't really there to think we were going to win a Nationals, but we had some pretty good sailors to sail against, and good to go down and give the Victorians a bit of stick.
I couldn't imagine sailing with any other person because he's pretty much got the control of the boat, so you got to have good trust in the skipper.
With one title in the bag, the Whites are hoping for another in their own backyard when they compete in the Formula 18 Nationals at Mannering Park later this month.
It's a really fair competitive class, and it's a very exciting way to bring all the sailors together from other classes.
Already highly regarded by famous lake sailors such as Nathan Outteridge and Ian Jensen, Lockie is now hoping to follow in their wake.
I'd love to be a professional sailor because if you can make something you love your job, then you definitely have a good life.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Families all desperate to feel safe in their own homes. Since Christmas Eve, countless properties at Waterford County have been repetitively targeted by thieves. Today, residents, too scared to show their faces for fear they'll be victimised, spoke out for the first time.
Past us sleeping in the bed into the wardrobe. They left my bag, took about $1,400 cash, so there was no Christmas for my kids. Since they've been back twice but can't get in.
Another father was left reeling after his home was broken into while he and his family slept.
Knowing that possibly, yes, you might have been home when the intrusion happened, and of course you didn't react to it because you didn't know it was happening. It leaves a massive fire in the belly that I can't quite explain to you.
The residents here are living in fear. One family has heard thieves try and enter their home every night since last Thursday. Many say they have spotted who they believe could be the culprits.
It's at least 7 of them. They were seen in one of the empty houses, 7 of them running out of that house. They'll watch for the police that will come and do drive-bys, and they'll wait half an hour and then they'll do a house, or they'll wait for husbands to go to work and then they'll attack a house. They know exactly where we are and what we're doing at all times.
Police say they're confident it won't continue.
We will do everything within our power to identify the people responsible, and in one way or the other we'll bring it to an end.
Catch them. Simple as that, catch them.
The residents of the estate are extremely keen to say hello to them.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
It was a long road for the Williamtown McDonald's development, which stirred controversy across the community. Now, new plans have been lodged for an $11 million complex next door to the fast food outlet.
I'm quite confident it'll get approval. McDonald's was a
You know, there was objections to that from some of the council staff, but I think there was enough councillors who saw the merit.
Knightsbridge Estate Group's project would see the construction of a 50-bed hotel, restaurant, tavern, bottle shop and convention centre.
It'll create employment in the construction stage. It'll create permanent employment when it's built.
But not everyone is sold on the idea.
I'm not sure really how great the demand is.
Aircraft noise is among the biggest concerns.
If it complies with the major issues, and traffic is probably the big one, with traffic, drainage and aircraft noise.
I think it's rubbish, absolute rubbish. There's more noise on the Nelson Bay Road than aircraft because the aircraft fly so infrequently.
The plans must now go through a lengthy assessment process and are on public exhibition until next Wednesday. Meanwhile, Council says the $12 million hotel planned for Newcastle Airport by GWH Group will be approved within days. Stephanie Jeans, NBN News.
The first sale of the year. And it's a big one. The Scone Sale Yard's moving 1,750 head of cattle in its January sale, 500 of those calves.
They're trying to get the calves off the cows so the cows will survive, and they're forgoing possibly half their income for this year, but to try and salvage that cow so next year's income's assured.
It's the result of one of the driest periods the Upper Hunter has experienced in more than a decade.
Usually when we're drought declared we do get a freight subsidy to be able to send those cattle somewhere, but we can't get that at the moment, and look, that's meant their only option is to take what they get here.
Calves were fetching a $300 return at this week's sale, down on $650 to $700 last year. And while local water resources remain at reasonable levels, feed is not, forcing farmers like John Begg to sell their stock earlier and at a lighter weight.
As bad as anything we've seen. From March through to now is as dry as any of the serious droughts that we've been through.
The latest Rabobank Rural Confidence Survey found farmers are pessimistic about the year ahead, with the worsening season impacting prices and pastures.
We're having to operate with this high dollar that's really taking the optimism out of a lot of the processors and feedlotters, and so hence, you know, our market is probably not where it would be if we had an 80-cent dollar.
Christy Reading, NBN News.
Five World War II service medals and a later medal from the 50s, and we're just hoping that someone would be able to hopefully identify those.
From roaring 40s one day to a howling gale the next. Local hope Eliza Huff started the day in a tie for the lead, but a double bogey early on had her playing catch-up. By 16, Huff had regained her swagger and appeared to have the ball on a string, putting this approach within range for a birdie. But her short stick failed her, this putt not dropping, and Huff was forced to settle for par. With New Zealand Open champion Jake Higginbottom walking the fairways in support, Huff was keen to impress. The big-hitting 18-year-old was living dangerously. Her tee shot on 17 pulled up just in time. Another tricky approach, again sublime. The Belmont local narrowly missing a chance to pull one back. The 18-year-old, though, is upbeat about her chances over the next 2 days.
I played decently, it's just with the wind being so different to yesterday, it was much opposite conditions pretty much, just struggled with that.
Victoria's Sue Win-O sits 4 shots clear of Queensland's Ali Orchard, while Huff is a further 4 shots back at 3 over. Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News. She's one of the finest tennis products to come out of Newcastle. Now, Trudy Musgrave is looking to pass on that experience. Tomorrow, she'll join playing partner Rochelle Van Ryswyk, 19 years her junior, to represent New South Wales country in a doubles clash with City at the Sydney International.
I would have loved to have played at a tournament like this at that age, so I think it's really good for Rochelle to do that, and I hope I can help her as much as I can and pass on as much experience. The younger you can learn all these things, the better.
Van Ryswyk has been under Musgrave's tutelage for 5 years.
Yeah, she's very motivating, and I mean, she doesn't let me get down on myself at all. Like, she'll build me up, and yeah, it's really good.
We've been trying to play a few tournaments together because she's going to be the youngest one there. She's only 16, and she can learn a lot more from me just playing on the court.
2 weeks ago, the pair was narrowly knocked out in the semi-finals of the Manly Seaside Tournament. Tomorrow is a chance to go even better.
A bit nervous. It'll probably kick in more tomorrow.
Well, hopefully, just getting a taste of being at the Apia, she'll get motivated and really want to be there herself in a few years' time.
Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News.
On one of summer's hottest days, patients and nurses were left to sweat.
Intolerable conditions in what is going to be a very hot summer. You can't have an emergency department with 40 to 3 degrees outside and no air conditioning.
Maitland Hospital's air conditioning malfunctioned in Tuesday's heat, causing some surgeries to be rescheduled. The opposition says some staff also fell sick.
Well, certainly the nurses' experience has been very difficult. Dizziness, nosebleeds, and trying desperately to do their job.
I know that there have been some issues raised late with local management of the hospital.
There is a solution. A new air conditioning system has been purchased, but it won't be installed until April.
We wouldn't pull out an air conditioning system in the middle of summer and put anybody else at any risk.
The existing system is now back up and running, and with temperatures set to soar again starting tomorrow, health authorities say they're prepared for the worst.
We have extra induction fans. I've spoken to Maitland today about making a portable chiller available to back up the existing chillers so that we make sure that we've got consistency in our temperatures in our hospital.
Diana Bushby, NBN News.
The city's legal fraternity is eagerly awaiting the completion of the new state government-funded law precinct, including 10 courtrooms. But it will have to be patient. The Frederick Ash building was demolished last March, but before construction can begin, $2.5 million is being spent on grouting. Concrete slurry is being pumped into the old mine workings to make the site safe. It's a costly step, especially for developments featuring buildings over 3 storeys, and a major constraint to CBD renewal.
The bulk of the Newcastle CBD is undermined by old mine workings. It's certainly a considerable cost impost, and we have had developments in the city that have spent $2 and $3 million on an individual site to be able to allow a development to be built on the surface.
The redevelopment of the Star Hotel was put on the back burner after the owner realised the grouting would cost $1 million, while Marketown had to foot a $3 million bill. There are now calls for a CBD grouting plan and a special fund, following the establishment of a mine subsidence working party.
It's been set up to look at ways to either reduce the amount of grouting to be done, ways to reduce the cost, to make developers more well informed.
In a week of fire threats and extreme temperatures, the need for a Scone rail overpass has never been more obvious. Numerous times a day, the town is cut in half by coal trains en route from the Gunnedah Basin, stopping emergency service access across town.
Something will happen unless a solution is found and implemented soon, and people will say, why didn't we fix it before now?
The state's Roads and Maritime Services has been undertaking a feasibility study, and the finish line is finally in sight. The RMS has narrowed it down to 2 options. The first is a $95 million bypass of the New England Highway west of the town. The second is an over-rail bridge at the Kelly Street crossing, but council is pushing for some changes.
We're looking to reduce Kelly Street to a single through lane with a second what they call a browsing lane for local traffic to get better access in and out of the car parking in Kelly Street.
The RMS is expected to make a decision when it meets with council next month. Then the pressure's on the federal government for funds.
To make sure that the Upper Hunter, in this case Scone, the last remaining level crossing on the New England Highway, is resolved.
Not a moment too soon for those who've been pushing for the improvement.
It should have been done a long, long time ago, yes, there's no doubt about that.
Christy Reading, NBN News. The start of a new season. Jackson Hill's pickers today helping make wine while the sun didn't shine. Across the valley, workers were out in force for an early harvest, a race against time before the second heat wave in a week hits tomorrow.
Thankfully, we managed to get a crew together and we could get it off exactly when we wanted.
A dry growing season combined with blistering harvest temperatures is putting pressure on white wine varieties. But for reds, it's just what winemakers ordered.
This is perfect because the smaller berry size, the smaller yield means you get much stronger colour, much stronger flavour and beautiful tannins. So that's the best we could hope for.
It's set to put pressure on the industry's workforce.
This year, I would suggest that we'll see the reds coming in very close to when the whites are ready to go as well. Very compressed kind of vintage, which means a lot of work to do in a short period of time.
But after a trying 2012 vintage, that's the least of its worries.
It's only up to us now as winemakers to stuff it up. So nature's given us beautiful fruit to work with this year, and I'm feeling extremely blessed.
Christy Reading, NBN News.
back on his feet and preparing to raise the bar. Maitland's Miles Cole-Clark has a spring in his step. The 19-year-old, who now trains out of Sydney University, has recovered after an 18-week layoff due to stress fractures in his tibia.
The injuries are always in the back of your mind as an athlete, but you tend to work through them, kind of push them out. Don't really focus on them. Once you start focusing on them, you start getting worse.
Previously, Cole-Clark was forced to fly solo. Over the past 4 seasons, he did the majority of his training on his own and was struggling to break his personal best. Now, with a new coach, program and the Hunter Track Classic on the horizon, he's ready to soar to new heights.
It'll be tough going up against the 40-year-old Nick Moroney. Jumped a 2:15 the other week apparently, but hopefully I'll get a 2:10. I'll give him a good run anyway.
But first things first, Cole-Clark will make his competitive return at the Club Championships in Sydney this weekend.
Looking at least an equal PB would be nice there.
His main goal for 2013, the World University Games in Russia.
Had to jump 2:18 to qualify for that, so a fair distance to go, but hopefully we'll get there.
Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News.